As somebody that has actually served in the British Armed Forces, a lot of the stuff that I see both online and in the mainstream media isn't quite hitting the nail on the head. And I think for a large part, it's not even their fault. Because I think that without living in the British Armed Forces, you can't actually understand the depths of how rotten the Armed Forces has gotten. Now, I know that if you're on some sort of, maybe if you're on Reddit and stuff like that, you might have an idea. But having actually lived through a massive transition that the army went through, I really have a deeper understanding of this, and I think that the word needs to get out there. Now, the reason that the British Army had such an incredible reputation is because for hundreds of years, whoever we fought, we tend to beat. And we have won wars in so many different countries because of things like the British Empire, where we were just everywhere, and our soldiers were incredibly good at what they did. This extended all the way through until recently, such as Optelic and Op Herrick. I think Herrick only ended in like 2014 or something like that. I know that the last deployment that my battalion did was in 2013. That was the last kinetic deployment that they did. And I know the people that were on those sort of deployments. And let me tell you, they are far better than what we currently have. The biggest problem that I think people cannot currently wrap their head around isn't anything to do with budget cuts, it's nothing to do with the technology that we have, it's nothing to do with anything other than the philosophy of recruitment and retention. When I was only maybe 13, 14 years old, I saw on the TV great British people serving their nation, and it's something that I decided there and then it's what I wanted to do. I always looked up to those that fought in the Second and the First World War, and I always said I want to go and be a hero for my country like them. And I know, for the average person, that's all a bit gay and soppy. And well, I remember I said this on my first interview when I first joined. I was 16 by the time I got in. And I said, the reason I wanted to join is because I wanted to serve Queen and country. And that was actually genuinely the reason that I joined. And my boss at the time said, well, that's all great, but I think you're going to have to change your mind about that and think of a new reason by the time you're lying in a ditch and it's raining. And truthfully, the reason that I was in did shift over time. But, if nothing else, that was always my reason. And it's the same reason I got out. Because I think the problem that the army has now is broken down into those two simple things. It's the reason that people are joining and the reason that people are leaving. And what you end up is the people you want to be in the army leaving and the people that you want to join not joining. Right, so first let's cover recruitment, because I think this is where it's all going wrong. The army has been missing recruitment goals for years, back-to-back years. And it's really obvious to me why. But for some reason, a lot of people treat it like some sort of big mystery. There's two main reasons for me. The first one is the fact that what are people joining to defend? At the end of the day, it's a defence force. And what are they joining to defend? For reference, I joined in 2018. It was right at the back of, when we were wrapping up Afghanistan, and that's where I was due to go. I was due to go to Afghanistan. In the end, I didn't go. And I was fed so much bollocks about Russia. Russia's the enemy, Russia's going to do this, Russia's going to do that. And I would always stand there and think, I don't care. I genuinely don't have it in me to care. I spent 6 months in Eastern Europe, and all we were doing was prodding the bear, and it's something I literally never had any interest in doing. I didn't even think we were in the right. I literally thought, I am right now just a provocateur. I'm out here just prodding the bear for no reason. It didn't interest me, and yet if I stayed in for another 20 years, my whole career would have just been around prodding the bear, and it was not something that I'm interested in. But if you're on the outside, let's say you don't know what the army's doing. You just think, okay, well, we're going to defend the country. What are you actually defending? Because right now, the country is completely against the white man. All I ever hear about is you're a racist. And what is that about? Okay, it's about the white man standing up for himself. If a white Englishman, an ethnically English man, stands up for himself and his country, all that happens is he gets called racist. Is that just by random, foreigners in the country? No, it's by our own government. Our own government arrests people for having these extremist views. And it's like, why would I want to serve and defend that? It doesn't make any sense. And bearing in mind that, when I was in the army from 2018 to 2024, I think 6.5 million people at an absolute minimum came into this country. And probably almost zero of those, if I was the one that was stood there saying yes or no, would I have let in? It's like I'm stood there saying, oh, I'm going to defend my country. Meanwhile, it is just being invaded. So there's the biggest problem. People are not getting in because they see that we're being discriminated against. And then the people that are getting in, I'm not being funny, they are like DEI hires. It's like, when I was in, and this is something I wouldn't say if I was still in because I know I'd just get fired for being racist. They were just importing like so many Caribbeans and Africans. And I'm not joking, they were shit at their job. They were fucking shit at their job. They were so crap. They're so stupid. They are so stupid. And I'm not going to discredit all of them because there were a couple, and I mean like two, that were better soldiers than I'll ever be. And I mean that, like, I've got so much respect for a couple of these individuals because they were like actual brave men that did good things for good people, and I respect them for that. But most of these African soldiers are absolutely abysmal. And not only that, but they're sending like £1,000 a month home in remittances. So the army's paying like £1,000 a month to fucking Nigeria. Why are we sending money to Nigeria? It doesn't make any sense. But there we go. So it costs the economy more to have worse soldiers so that they can meet these diversity like box ticking events. It genuinely boggles the mind because this is another thing. So just after I joined, women were allowed to join the army as well. Now, I don't have anything against like women. This is another thing. It's like you're sexist and you're racist and blah blah. I'm kind of bored of all those labels. I don't really care, but I just want to say for clarification that I just don't think it's a woman's place to be in the infantry. It's dangerous because not only is the woman a burden, and I mean that I don't mean it in the nicest way. They're a burden. They're not strong enough. They're not mentally or physically strong enough to fill that role as a woman in the infantry. And I've spoke to other people from other branches like the Marines. They all say the same thing. But not only that, but men treat them differently as well. It's been shown to have happened where men pick women even though they're a lower priority for, say, first aid over another man because just the woman screaming gets their attention. So yeah, the woman, should not be in the infantry. If they want to be a chef, why would I care? You know what I mean? But why this is different from, say, I don't know, say you stack shelves at Lidl and they hire a woman and an African with the IQ of 30. It doesn't really matter that much because all that's going to happen is you're probably going to have to go around and correct them. And yeah, they've hired a shelf stacker that's a woman and she can't even reach the top shelf. Alright, it's a bit annoying. You're going to have to go around and do her job for her anyway, but you're not going to die. But if something actually kicks off and you're in the infantry and now you're, I don't know, 2IC is a female and she can't even keep up with the rest of the section, then yeah, it's not going to work and it's going to cost people their lives. If she cannot pick up, by the time you're wearing your body armour, your camelback, your webbing, your weapon, a couple of rations, everything like that, you're probably going to be 100 kilo at least. I was like 115 kilo with some kit on. And if a 65 kilo woman cannot carry me out whilst I'm unconscious, that might be both of us dead. Seriously. And it just doesn't get taken seriously. So, yeah, diversity, like both through forced diversity and also white men just saying, look, I don't want to serve that agenda anymore, is absolutely rotting the army from the inside out. Now, the same thing goes for why retention is so poor at the minute. I left because Like to be fair, I wanted to get out and start a family and stuff like that. But I also just saw the people above me, as in like my platoon sergeant and sergeant major and stuff like that. They were just not living a life that I wanted to live because the army's just not doing anything anymore. It's just literally go to Estonia, come back, train to go back to Estonia, go back to Estonia. And it's like, why would anybody want to do that? This is not the agenda. When I go home to Leicester, bear in mind, Leicester's like, what, a third white English? I think, why am I over there in Estonia defending against the Russians? Look at what's happened to my own city. So the retention is terrible because people are seeing that they're not actually serving their country anymore. You know, I gave 6 years of my life to my country, and yet I felt like I was just stabbed in the back. So retention is terrible, recruitment's terrible, and what does that mean? It means that now, if the army wants to get back in shape, it's no longer just a matter of, you know, throw more money at it, because the actual average soldier in the army now is of a much worse standard. And so you think, okay, these say we get in 10,000 new recruits like this year, which is I don't think they'll be able to do, but whatever. Let's say you got these 10,000 people, they're just complete civilians, they don't know what to do. Well, now the people that are bringing them up to a high standard are not themselves of a high standard because they've probably got, you know, the IQ of a frying pan and they're 5'4". It's like, I think people are not grasping the gravity of this situation. We cannot do our job as the armed forces because all the best people got out 10, 15 years ago. You know, some of the ones that are still kind of clinging on now from the days of Herrick and stuff like that. Yeah, respect to them, but I think a lot of them are just sort of lingering around waiting for a pension. They're not the heart isn't really in it anymore. At least that's from my personal experience anyway. So I think one of the things that people have got to sort of come round to is the fact that this is no longer just we're underfunded thing. This is like we are fundamentally screwed because DEI has just turned everyone away from it. I mean, there were points, you look at like the RAF. The RAF explicitly said they were not going to hire any more white men because they want to meet diversity quotas. How do you expect someone like me to turn around and say, oh great, yeah, I'll go and serve in the RAF, when they've explicitly said that because of the fact that I've got a dick and I have my English like ethnicity, they won't hire me. It honestly boggles the mind how they then expect to hit the right quotas for, you know, just the raw amount of people showing up. Because at the end of the day, you have so many people in this country right now that live here that see this place as like not their home. You know, oh, Jamaica's my home, or India's my home, or Pakistan's my home, or so many things like that. They're not interested in serving us. And for reference, during the years of us being in conflict with ISIS, more British Muslims joined ISIS than joined the British Armed Forces. And yet then they go and make an advert about, oh, can I pray whilst I'm in the army? Now I don't want to join the army because I just know they want Muslims. It's like whoever is in charge of all this, whoever's overseeing it, is incredibly naive. And it's going to completely destroy this army because we not only have we not defended ourselves and we're now being invaded, we just don't have the physical abilities. We've withdrawn the choice to defend ourselves. Previously we were choosing not to defend ourselves. Now we don't have the choice. So I think genuinely the only reasonable army that we could summon together is a bunch of 50-year-old men that are actually tough as nails and do actually know what they're talking about. Okay, yeah, they might be a bit rusty, not been in for 20 years, 30 years. But it's still that I wholeheartedly believe that the best generation of people in the army is now behind us.
Okay. Evacuation's not usually this quiet.
Get inside.
This is what I'm talking about.
Over the hills and far away, Teletubbies